Okay, this is GamerBlave and we're back with True Remembrance. And if you missed the last video, then you know that Rook was our narrator. And that was the first time that we've got to have him as a narrator. And he was spending a little time alone with Law, actually, in Cafe Aroma. And it was kind of an interesting episode because we got to have a little bit of backstory on him and Black Iris. So it was a pretty interesting episode. I would recommend checking it out if you missed it, but because you know, getting a little bit of backstory on Black Iris, which we didn't really have up until then. So anyway, and at the very end of that episode, actually, we did kind of see that we're going to have a new character coming in. We didn't really get any information about her. She just showed up in Aroma, and Rook said welcome, and that was pretty much it. That's all we have on that person, so not really sure about anything about that person. So, going to be very interesting to see who that person is. So, let us continue. If we accept the premise, and we must, that killing a man's memory is equivalent to killing the man himself, then a mnemonicide is the destroyer of worlds. Anna Lee was the one who wrote that. And I was the one who killed Anna Lee. I remember how heavy the gun felt in my hands. It was the weight of the world. I couldn't hold on to it. I let it all fall to the ground. A kitten came and curled up next to the wretched man, next to the fallen alpha of Omegas. She started wailing. It was piteous. The kitten turned towards me. Her eyes narrowed. She cried out just once. I could see the look on her face. She knew, and I knew. She was saying, "Get away from me." I don't know why, not even to this day. I don't understand it. I couldn't take another step. Four. Ohne Worte. I believe that's German. Is that something word? I really don't know German. I'm just guessing. One word, maybe? Law liked doing laundry when it was clear out like this. A nice sunny day was a rare thing indeed in this land of ice and snow, and she was certainly making the best of it. I mean, she was bustling back and forth out there in the garden, hanging clothes out to dry, dancing about, a hint of a smile on her face even. I stood by the window and watched her for a while. She really did look like she was having fun out there. Good, good. I was about to turn away when she suddenly stooped over. I wondered if she'd slipped on a patch of ice or something, but then she stood. She didn't seem hurt, but when she turned toward me, she was holding a puppy in her arms. She looked worried, real worried. She cradled the little creature as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. The puppy was in bad shape, all right. It was limp and unresponsive in her arms. I watched as Law gingerly made her way back inside. She was at my side before I even heard the door close. She looked like she was about to cry. I'm so sorry. I dropped a wet sheet by accident on this little one. And sure enough, there was a sheet billowing about on the ground outside. We'd have to take care of that sooner or later, but this puppy was going to have to take priority. It licked. Rather, it made a feeble attempt to lick my fingers when I reached out to touch it. I shouldn't have, right? If I hadn't been doing laundry, then we would have nothing to wear, and then we'd really be sorry. In any case, this isn't your fault. I picked a dry towel out from the laundry basket, wrapped the puppy up, and placed it back into the basket. Then I headed into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Oh, good. We had some milk left. I poured some out into a pan and started warming it. I removed it from the heat before it started to boil, grabbed some bread, and came back to the living room. The puppy's eyes suddenly snapped open. Its black nose started twitching, its tail started wagging. It had freed itself from the towel and jumped out of the laundry basket by the time I'd finished dunking the bread into the milk. "Law, hold the puppy for a bit, will you?" "Oh, okay." She did as I said. I don't think she had any idea what to make of the puppy's sudden vigor. Meanwhile, I waited for the milk to cool down. After a minute or two, I dipped a finger into the pan. Good, not scalding anymore. This would do. I put it down on the floor. "All right, you can let go now." The puppy jumped off of her lap the moment she let go. It made a beeline for the pan and started demolishing its meal. Warm milk and bread. I guess most dogs probably eat just about anything, but that just doesn't really seem like the ideal puppy meal. Of course, I'm not really a dog owner. I don't really know what they need, so I guess whatever you have on hand. Of course, Law couldn't take her eyes off the puppy the entire time. It was probably just hungry. Remind you of somebody? Law scowled at me briefly, but she couldn't stay mad at me for long. Soon enough, a little smile came to her face as she watched the puppy lapping up the milk. "Bread and milk? Is that good enough?" "Well, proper dog food would have been better, but we don't have any, so this'll have to do." "And you've had pets before?" "Why do you ask?" "Well, you look like you know what you're doing, as if you've done this before." "I had a cat once, a kitten. Really cute little girl. She went her own way before long, though." Wait a second." Law suddenly reached out and grabbed something on the puppy's neck. The puppy, of course, was too busy wolfing down what must have been its first meal in days to notice. A collar, and on it, a gold-plated nameplate. "So this is somebody's pet. Can you make anything out?" "Jackal." "So that's his name. How wonderful." "Alright, so the puppy's name is Jackal. I'm assuming they're going to refer to that again, but I'm going to go ahead and write it down. Puppy Jackal. Just because I'm terrible with names and forget things, so. Wait, there's something else. An address on 7th Street. 7th Street? He came all the way from there? No wonder he's in this condition. His meal obviously finished, Jackal came ambling toward where Law was sitting on the living room floor. He turned around a couple times and finally curled up with his head on her lap. He closed his eyes and settled into a contented sleep. His owner's probably a girl. Such a pushy little guy, don't you think? Maybe, but his owner's probably worried sick. Probably looking for him. Can we go? Take him to 7th Street? Sure, if we keep him here, he'll end up eating everything in the house, anyhow. We'll get going once he wakes up. Alright, another trip. And so we waited. I sat in a chair and read a book. Law, on the other hand, sat motionless on the ground, as if she did not wish to disturb the dog's sleep. Soon enough, Jackal rolled a little and started shuddering. Law looked up at me as if she had no idea what to do. He's still half asleep, that's all. Give him some time. Really? Doesn't seem that way. By now, Law had started shuddering herself. But Jackal finally opened his eyes with a big yawn. Then he got to his feet. After a long, leisurely stretch, he looked up at us with an unmistakable grin and a wagging tail. All right, let's go. Wait, do they allow pets on the trolley? No, they didn't, as a matter of fact, which meant we were going to have to hoof it. We're going on a walk? How nice, huh, Jackal? I looked at the two of them. They were quite the sight. I didn't know who looked happier about this turn of events, Jackal or Law. Usually this kind of exuberance would annoy me, but for some reason, not today. So I shrugged. What could I do after all? I attached a leash onto Jackal's collar, and then we all walked out the door together. Now I had the leash in the very beginning, but Law kept looking at me so enviously that I had to hand it over. Although the way Jackal was surging ahead now, there was some doubt as to who was walking whom. Law, keep your eyes on the road, otherwise you'll bump into something. Oh, right. Eek! And so we walked along. Rather, I walked along. Law was pulled and dragged this direction and that. You know how they say that sometimes with pets it's hard to know who owns whom. In this case, the relationship was obvious. A large percentage of people in town kept pets. This made sense. Most of us were mnemonicides, living out solitary lives. Companionship was always welcome, no matter whether it was furry or scaled or finned. Living out solidarity, yep. That's what it was. Still, I thought there was something terribly wrong with this. Why was it that pets were more welcome than people here in this walled garden, frozen with dolor and ice? 7th Street was an urban promenade, filled with narrow streets lined by tall buildings. We mnemonicides lived in these apartment complexes when we were off duty, here and on 5th Street, where I had my place. When it came time to take a guest, we were given a more spacious residence for the duration of that assignment. Now, that actually brings up a point. Since there's such a long waiting list, I mean, I would imagine that they have to have some downtime. They have to have some kind of vacation period, because for the most part, if you just worked someone all the time, you'd probably drive them nuts. But I would imagine the place that they live in, they would get to spend very little time in, due to the fact that there's such high demand for mnemonicides that the waiting list to get in here is so long that they would be on assignment virtually all the time. You know, that this would be somewhat akin to a full-time job. So maybe, you know, I'm just guessing that they get, you know, maybe 1 or 2 weeks off a year that they're actually spending in their own place. Which actually makes it seem to me that it would be almost not worth having their own place, if that makes sense. I mean, it to me, it seems like it would be a misallocation of resources to give them a house that they live in when they have a guest, and then another house that they live in by themselves if they're only in the house by themselves for a couple of weeks. And then they move out of that house and into the house that they stay in when they have guests for 50 weeks out of the year. Because then they have to maintain another property, and they also have to use that actual physical space. It takes up space as well. So, I mean, there's monetary cost and there's space cost associated with that other place. When you would think that it would be just more convenient for them to use their own house. Just maybe maybe give each of the mnemonicides a house that they use for taking care of guests that is maybe a little bit bigger. I mean, maybe invest that additional capital that you're spending on maintaining the two separate places on just one place. So then you don't have accommodations that are as modest as what they're staying in. In situations like that. It just, that kind of thing doesn't make any sense to me. Because just based on the demand of their industry, that doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, I digress and continue. Have we already said this, or did I don't know. At the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to go ahead and read this again. Now, Law had never seen this place before. Usually she'd skip along, taking in the sights and sounds at her own pace. There wasn't any chance of that today. Jackal was all over her. A woman, probably a mnemonicide, on her way back from grocery shopping, stopped to watch the spectacle. I could hear her giggling softly as we walked by. It took us roughly an hour to find the address that had been written on Jackal's collar tag. We located the apartment number in the doorside directory and pressed the corresponding buzzer, but no one answered. Maybe no one's home. Now what? Well, we can't just leave Jackal here and go home. We'll have to try again later. I mean, do they not have a mailbox or some other way of contacting them? I mean, if they do have an address, you'd at least be able to presumably send them a letter and get them a message that way, and let them know that you have their dog so they can contact you. Okay, I'm sure the owner is worried. Law looked hard at the buzzer one last time, and then turned away, as did Jackal. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, because you'd think if they finally did get back to the home, that, Jackal would have, if it was his home and he was super excited about it, he would have just pressed up against the door and, been super excited about getting in there and whatnot. It was still such a nice day out, so we ended up walking all the way to Cafe Aroma on 6th. I could hear voices coming from inside. Now that was unusual. But then, when I listened a bit more closely, I realized, oh, Rook was just listening to the radio. Aw, that's too bad. I was really hoping that we would get to meet that other character who dropped in at the very tail end of the last episode. Welcome. Hey man, you heard about what's been going on? Bad news, yo, bad news. Rook turned to me with a troubled expression on his face, gesturing to the radio all the while. Why? What happened? Should have known you'd have no idea. An anarchist group claims they planted a bomb at HQ. Now everybody was evacuated, so no real harm done, but still, man. An anarchist group? They aren't even worthy of that label. Just a bunch of selfish idiots with too much time on their hands, I'm telling you. We ought to do the world a favor and kill them all. Strong words. I'd never seen him this upset before. Also kind of ironic, given what he'd told me of his past. Law was standing at the door, unsure of whether she ought to come in or not. That was considerate of her. After all, most restaurants didn't allow pets inside. Oh, hey Law, wait, that dog. You know him? No, never seen him before. It's just a customer of mine lost a dog a couple of days ago. Mixed breed, black fur, fits the description, don't you think? Talk about finding clues in the strangest places. La's face suddenly lit up. She strode into Aroma with a spring in her step and with Jackal at her heels. This customer, a regular? Coming today, perhaps? So I guess that was the lady. The lady who walked in there. I'm wondering if she came in, if that was the only reason she came in, was the lost dog. I have to assume that that was not the only reason, but you never know. I've been surprised before. I will be surprised again. There's no doubt about it. Who knows? Usually comes round in the evening, see? We went over to the owner's apartment. No one home. Heh, you went during business hours, didn't you? No wonder, probably still at work or something. And is this a pneumonicide? Apparently. Didn't pry much, though, if you know what I'm saying. Rook deftly placed a bowl of water in front of Jackal and lunch in front of us. Yo, you mind if I keep him for a bit? That's kind of strange. I think that there must be something else going on here, because it seemed a little bit too mysterious, but I guess maybe I just built it up in my mind, because, you know, she just popped in, he was like, welcome, and it faded to black, and then a couple of days go by, and I just have this built up in my mind. I'm like, well, what the heck was, you know, what could have been going on with her? You know, so I'm just coming up with all these possibilities, and, you know, just some person who lost a dog. You know, that certainly was not one of my theories at all. And so I think Rook might be up to something here. Rook really did look eager to help, and this would free me up from having to dog sit. But why was he doing this? I didn't know that he liked dogs. See, the owner, she's this pretty little lady, worried to death about her dog, see? So if I can be of any assistance... no, it wasn't that he liked dogs. That he was... It was that he was a horn dog. How could I forget? Anyway, it was a done deal. Rook took Jackal, and we took in lunch. After we finished, it was time for us to leave. Law clearly didn't want to leave Jackal behind, but she knew that it was better this way. So she patted him on the head gently before heading out the door. Jackal closed his eyes with bliss, and as we walked down 6th on our way home, I felt him watching us, or rather Law, from the window. Obviously, she'd made a new friend. I have to think, okay, I have to assume here that there is something going on with this other character, because this seems like a very strange way. This seems like I think that they have to be doing something else, because we've already learned and maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm missing something, but we've already learned about Law's compassion. And forgive me for going off on this tangent. Most of the things that I read, in fact, almost exclusively what I read, are nonfiction things, and so anyway, once again, tangent. So we've already learned that Law is compassionate and, you know, would care for someone in need, would care for, you know, wouldn't hurt a fly type situation. That's her character. And, you know, we've learned that Black Iris, you know, I think portrays wants to put out kind of a begrudging helpfulness, but it seems like he wants to truly help people. At least that's what I've got from this visual novel so far. But if this little story here, if what just happened, and it might not be, I mean, I just want to put it out there in case it is. But if what literally just happened was they had a dog show up and they took care of it, and then they brought it to Rook, and Rook was like, hey, this lady showed up, and then I'm going to bring the dog back to her. If that is all there was to that, then to me, that feels like a narrative waste of time. I mean, that story in and of itself is not particularly interesting. I mean, I realize I'm interested in a lot of stuff that's going on in terms of the universe that they've created here, in terms of the problems that the world's experiencing and how the world is dealing with the problems, and the characters that they've put into the story here. But it seems to me like, I mean, I haven't really said anything, overtly critical about this yet, but it seems to me that that would be a little bit, it seems to me that that's a little bit, once again, I don't know. We have absolutely no idea who that lady is, and I do not know what Rook's actual motives are. He could have been covering that up. So, that truly remains to be seen. That truly remains to be seen. But that seems kind of like, that just seems based on how I just experienced it. And once again, that might just be because I lack depth. And if it is, then, in a calm and constructive manner, just engage in dialogue in the comments, as to how I may have missed, the significance, because I don't think that really informed anything. I don't think that really informed anything that we didn't already know. Once again, if there isn't any, if that isn't a hook for any narrative significance to come. But if that was just like a passing story, then it just seems like it seemed like fluff, just to like take up more pages. Anyway, I digress. Just sharing my sentiments, because that's kind of what it seems like it's happening. But as I've said very recently, I think I said it just a minute or two ago, I've been surprised, and I will be surprised again. So, a bunch of caveats in that statement, and that's probably the most openly critical thing that I've said about this. There's a lot of stuff that I like about this visual novel, but that just kind of struck me there. So anyway, let's continue. The next time we went shopping, there were newsboys in the streets waving their papers about and yelling at the tops of their lungs. How unusual, I thought. Since when does our little town have anything worth writing about? I bought a paper on a whim, and it turned out another bomb. This time, it was a public park on 4th Street. According to the article, The same anarchist group of the HQ bomb incident was to blame. And speaking of HQ, there was a general proclamation from the higher-ups next to the article. It wasn't anything I hadn't already heard 1,000 times over. Take extra care, protect your guests, report any suspicious activity immediately. Wasn't this all standard operating procedure anyhow? Why reiterate it at this hour? What point would that serve? La peeked over my shoulder and read along with me. She looked kind of worried, actually. I wonder, what do they want? Hard to say. As much as certain, either mnemonicides are behind this, or we have people who snuck in pretending to be guests. Either way, it isn't good news. A park, lots of people. Is that what they want? To shake us up? To hurt us? Interesting. I've never seen Law this upset before, especially given the fact that the article didn't make any mention of anyone being killed or wounded. Well, if they wanted to shake us up, they've certainly succeeded in that. Hard to believe that there's someone out there who'd sneak into this town just to blow stuff up. It wasn't just us. The entire country was shaken by this news, probably. Which meant there was a massive manhunt going on even as we stood on the street and read the newspaper. But the thing was, they hadn't caught the perpetrators the first time around either. How was I to have much confidence they'd succeed this time around? For that matter, how was I to have much confidence that someone at HQ wasn't feeding information to the terrorists? We headed over to Aroma once our shopping was done. I opened the door and came face to face with a woman who was obviously just about to leave. Oh, here we go. We're going to meet the character. I started stepping back so she could get out, but she was faster than I was and squeezed past me in the blink of an eye. In fact, her motions were so brisk that she actually did bump into me fairly hard on her way out. Well, no, we're not going to meet her. Now, it wasn't forceful enough to knock me over or anything, far from it, but I remembered feeling something not quite right touch my arm, which was why I just thrust my hands into my coat pockets and stood there in front of Aroma for a bit. Huh, does he think he got pickpocketed, maybe? I mean, I'm paranoid whenever I'm in a city. Whenever I'm in a city, I usually walk around with my hand in my pocket, like on my wallet. Just because I think I'm going to get pickpocketed. But, you know, I watch the movies and I think that those, like, I just think that there are pickpockets that are so good that they're going to be able to get it anyway. But, yeah, whenever someone bumps into me, I just assume that they've pickpocketed me. Black Iris? Is something wrong? Law asked, obviously wondering why I wasn't going in already. Oh no, it's nothing. I replied with a smile. Rook was washing dishes when we walked in. He turned and shook his head slightly when he saw who we were. Should have come a bit earlier, kids. Jackal's owner was here up till a few minutes ago, you see. No kidding. So she's the one I bumped into on the way in. Yeah, no doubt. Anyway, she said she wanted to thank you in person, so I gave her your current address. She told me she'd be coming around your place in the evening. All right. Good deal. We took our usual seats at the counter. There was a manila envelope sitting there. Law eyed it for a second. Think this is hers? More than likely. Not a very organized person, is she? First she loses her dog, and now she's leaving her stuff around everywhere. Law picked up the envelope and gave it to me. I put it in my pocket. If that woman really was going to come over later tonight, I might as well give it to her then. Besides, I had bigger fish to fry at that moment. Alright, so I guess if she's coming over because of the dog, then that was just a long-winded way of having them meet. So I retract at least 50% of my criticism on account of that. But no, but I'll retract it. Okay. Okay. Hey, Rook, that lady. Does she come here often? Yeah, she's been coming every day for an entire week now. Know what the weird thing is, though? Today's the first time I've seen her at this hour. She always stops by at night, right before closing time. Every day? Then I wonder, perhaps she's on assignment right now. Or perhaps she isn't on assignment right now. If she were, then there's no way she'd come here alone. Rook stopped washing mugs for a moment. He turned and nodded. Yeah, guess you're right. I wonder why she comes this often. You gone loco, man? To eat, obviously. And to hook up with me. All right, all jokes aside. She's probably just lonely or something. Lonely? You know, man, not everyone likes being all alone like you do. In fact, most of us prefer the opposite. Thank you very much. Besides, if you're not on assignment, you're totally free. Nothing to do, no one to talk to. Makes sense that someone in that position would come to a place like this, don't you think? Perhaps. Come on, Black Iris. Get with the program here. Don't you know what goes on in the heart of a lonely woman? No, and I don't want to know either. I said with a sigh and a wry smile. Law, on the other hand, well, let's just say that she was eating up every single thing Rook was saying. I mean, the way her eyes were sparkling, I knew he had her hook, line, and sinker, and I hoped that nothing strange would come of this. You know your customer well. Well, yeah, of course. Besides, she's quite the looker, and, actually, there's something kind of odd about her. He trailed off at this point and went on polishing mugs, staring at the door all the while. No matter what I said or did, I couldn't get him to say anything further. We got back to our place shortly before sunset. Law and I were busy making dinner when there was a knock at our door. All right, well, I've actually got a decent little bit of footage here, so I'm looking at the time for this one, and I think that that's a pretty good place to take a break. Now, I think that's kind of interesting that at the very end of the last video, we kind of just saw that character, and it looked like we were just going to get to meet her, and then, boom, we didn't get to meet her. So I thought we were definitely going to get to meet her in this episode. And then we go through this entire episode, and I actually thought we were going to get to meet her a couple of times in this one. And then we get right up to the end of this one, and it looks like we're going to get to meet her at the beginning of the next episode, and watch that knock be someone else entirely. That'd be pretty funny. So I guess the whole dog bit was, did have a purpose other than, some of the stuff that I had talked about, which is what it seemed like at that moment. And I thought, I don't know, just at the time I was like, man, this story, this little story about the dog. For me, for my tastes, I apologize for for criticizing while reading, I guess. But I thought that that was a little bit dry and redundant, I guess. But it served to have them meet this character. Now, I don't know if there's going to be significance to the fact that she owns the dog, or if maybe, you know, I'm kind of hoping, here's my hope, is that she had deliberately set the dog loose and the dog was supposed to like find someone, and that someone was supposed to have purpose or something, and there's supposed to be some kind of significance. Because we know, what we know about this world is that there is some kind of psychologic or psionic force, some supernatural psionic force, because these mnemonicides have some supernatural psionic abilities, right? Because they can essentially go into people's minds and delete memories and mess with people's heads. So there is supernatural psionic force. So, you know, I'm wondering if somehow she is using this dog. This is a weird theory, but I'm just hoping that there is some kind of actual significance and that the dog in some way plays into that. And that wasn't just, you know, 20 minutes of, you know, taking care of a dog and walking it to Aroma and all that stuff. Not that, I mean, I don't dislike dogs. Please don't interpret that way. I enjoy dogs. But that's certainly not what I mean by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, all that being said, I do look forward to seeing where this is going now that I do think we have got to the meat and potatoes of this situation here. You know, we have, we're finally going to meet this person. They have certainly built up to it a lot, meeting this character, more so than any other character in the game so far. The visual novel, building up to this character. So this is going to be interesting because don't really know anything about her. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I think it'll be something to look forward to. So all that being said, if you like this video, then go ahead and remember to hit that like button. And if you liked it a lot and you want to see the rest of this visual novel or anything else that I may be playing on this channel and you are not currently subscribed, then go ahead and subscribe as well if you are so inclined. But regardless, as always, thanks so much for watching, and we're going to be picking up right here next time.